It certainly is a lot quieter than it was before. I want to give you a quick look. You can see lots of officers here now breaking down, putting their gear away. So many officers here on scene today. Right now, the shooter is still on the run, and according to police, this was not a random shooting with a gunman trying to hurt random shoppers or employees. We know that the 2 people who were shot are expected to survive. Now, officers from as many as 10 different agencies turned out to Southcenter Mall today after shots were fired just before noon. Shoppers and employees took cover in stores at the shopping center, and the shopping center went into lockdown. Others were able to get away quickly. Now, we talked to one shopper who arrived just before the shooting started.
We were in there just a couple of minutes and heard I thought something dropped, but I looked back and it was about 4 or 5 gunshots that we heard and heard somebody scream, and so we all just headed to the back of the store and hid out in the dressing room area.
So many officers turned out here today. The SWAT team turned out. Teams of officers moved into the stores to clear the crime scene. Witnesses tell me they saw crowds of people running and they heard people yell active shooter. Police later on, though, cleared that up. This, again, appears to be an isolated incident, and the gunman and the people shot most likely knew each other, according to police. Back here live now, we still don't know why the shooting happened or who the shooter is. We're live in Tukwila. Suzanne Fawn, KOMO News.
All right, Suzanne, thank you very much. And we are waiting for more information from police, as you were saying, and we're also hearing from a number of other shoppers and employees who were inside that mall. Our team coverage continues now with KOMO's Nick Popham on the ground there. What have people been telling you throughout the afternoon, Nick?
Well, for most of the afternoon, they've just been thankful that they were able to make it out of the mall unscathed without any issues taking place. But several people were trapped inside for quite some time, sheltering in place. We were speaking with one gentleman who made his way out before everything went on lockdown, but his sisters were in a completely different store. They had to stay inside for several hours. He said they split up as he was going to shop in the JCPenney, and he saw about 20 people running out toward the exit saying there was a shooting. Once he was out of the mall, he called his sisters who were still inside. They were sheltering in place in one of those stores, and as the hours ticked on, we've seen this massive police presence arrive. As Suzanne's mentioned, they've started to clear out now, but they've gone to sweep throughout the entire buildings. No telling whether they've done a complete sweep just yet, but to Jarrett Hopewell, there was really only one thing on his mind throughout this entire situation.
Pretty much the only thing I'm thinking about is just my sisters, just making sure that they're safe and that they're good. Just trying to make sure, try to get information about their safety and when they're going to get out. I mean, I feel for anybody who got injured today too, as well. But that's my main focus has been on my sisters.
Yeah, guys, Kailey Shakespear said it felt like a nightmare on top of a nightmare when she was shopping at the mall yesterday, not only because the gunfire sounded like it was right outside the shop she was in, but because her son was shopping in a completely different area.
I looked at my mother-in-law and I'm like, where's Gavin? Where's Gavin?
Because at this point, Kailey Shakespeare's mind is racing. She was shopping at the Southcenter Mall with her in-laws, her 13-year-old son named Gavin, and 2 exchange students that had been living with her in-laws. Around noon, while in a shop near Seafood City, she heard the shots ring out.
It just was this pop, 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 and I'm thinking, this is really happening right now.
She quickly looked for a way out while dreading the fact that Gavin was not there with her. As soon as an employee opened up a back exit, she got outside and ran toward a cop who was nearby.
I wanted him to get in there and find the guy because my son was in there.
Down in that way?
Kailey recorded this video in case the shooter came out this way so there would be some video identification. Instead, she captures the fear on a couple faces and the pandemonium that came from this frightening situation.
No one's ever ready for something like that.
After stopping the recording, she FaceTimed Gavin, and despite it feeling like 2 years of separation, the 2 were reunited about 15 minutes later.
You feel like, how can it be worse than this? But it has been for people, you know.
Kailey is just one of hundreds of people who were at the mall when the shooting happened. Law enforcement agencies flooded the area, and Tukwila police announced that the mall would be closed the rest of the day after they cleared the entire facility. They said it was not an active shooter situation, that the shooter most likely knew the 2 victims. To Shakespeare, it felt like an active shooter situation in the moment.
How does anyone wrap their head around something like that? Maybe he was aiming for someone specifically, but anytime a gun is fired, there's a risk.
Hey, Steve. So we're just a few blocks to the east from Cal Anderson Park. Just minutes before we came on the air, there was a group of about a dozen or so bike officers, as well as a couple of cruisers. They were towing a vehicle away. I asked if this was in all involved with the protest. At times we do see those vehicles driving alongside the protesters, blocking roads, but the officer here couldn't tell me for sure if it was related. And just a block up behind us, up at Broadway, that's where we know at least 2 arrests were made when those objects were being thrown at officers. So not a lot here. Let's go to the sky. Air 4 right above us, taking a look down on what I believe is Cal Anderson Park, where a majority of that action is now. As you mentioned, there may be some arrests happening there as well. Prior to that, my count was 5. The 2 here, 2 earlier at a Starbucks near Broadway and Denny, and then 1 a little closer towards downtown at 7th and Olive, where the convention center construction is currently taking place. And this is going to be the group that police will likely be following as long as they're marching. But we've seen other protests today, too. I want to go ahead and, if we can, show some video from a little earlier. A peaceful march taking place. This one that was raising awareness for immigrant rights. And this was put on by a group called One America. The push here calling on Congress for a pathway to citizenship. And there were some big names at that event, including Senator Patty Murray, State Senator Joe Wen, who's vying to become the next King County executive, and Seattle City Council President Lorena Gonzalez. And also there was Congresswoman Pramila Jayapal. Take a listen to what she had to say at that event.
I cannot begin to tell you what a relief it is to have a new president, a new vice president, control of the Senate, and control of the House. Already, the president has rolled back many of the worst Trump-era restrictions, but we all know that that is not sufficient.
A lot of fingers crossed, absolutely. It's not looking good for some of the counties. They are right on the edge, but for the other counties, they've pretty much given up the fact that they are going to be headed back to phase 2, and nobody likes it. While many states around the country are opening up, Washington is closing down, with case rates and hospitalizations too high to meet the governor's guidelines to stay in phase 3. Pierce, Cowlitz, and Whitman counties were ordered back to phase 2 a couple of weeks ago, where restaurants, retail outlets, and gyms went from 50% capacity down to 25%. More counties are poised to join them, depending on their numbers, including King, Snohomish, Skagit, Kitsap, and Lewis.
What's going to happen with you guys?
Well, I'm very angry at Governor Inslee's relentless attacks against small business. We don't believe that there's a need to be rolling back. There's plenty of vaccines out there.
Carrie Lonergan-Drecke of Lombardi's Italian Restaurants in Snohomish County says it's not the restaurant's fault, it's the small personal gatherings.
It's a very frustrating time when more and the rest of the country is opening up.
So I fear that the longer this continues to go on, that we could end up with just a full-scale rebellion, with people just ignoring these continued edicts.
The governor was asked my question about whether he's concerned people won't comply.
No, our people are compliant. Our people want to save lives. Our people understand that this is a temporary condition.
And for Pierce County, fear that they might slip to phase 1 with no indoor dining, since their case rates are above the limit at 365, but not the hospitalization limit of 10.0.
But our hospitalizations are around 5%. So in order to move back to phase 1, we would have to fail both metrics.
Hi, everyone. I'm Preston Phillips from KOMO News. Thanks for checking out the KOMO YouTube channel. You can see more of our videos right here by clicking on the video links for more news from the Seattle area and Western Washington. Oh, and don't forget to click the subscribe button below so you don't miss our YouTube updates.